Yes. Hi, my name is Steve Brant. I'm a consultant in the corporate social responsibility and sustainable development movements. And my question comes from General Clark's comment that we must advance past the 19th century balance of power framework. The biggest fear I have is that there's a lesson we're going to lose that was first learned in the early 1960s. There was a book, Science and the Cause of Man, written by Gerard Peele, the publisher and editor of Scientific America, and he said that just as we have the power to destroy ourselves, we now have the scientific ability to feed, clothe, and house everyone on the planet. Basically, the win-lose framework of Malthusian economics was now obsolete because of scientific advancement. But it seems as if only the scientific community ever really realized that. Our policymakers never really adopted that paradigm because it was so huge. But today, with the world being so fragile, I'm wondering if this lesson that we really can feed, clothe, and house everyone means it's time for us to deal with shifting the global system from a win-lose scarcity paradigm to a win-lose abundance paradigm. Despite the challenge of that, maybe the Milken Institute could hold a panel on how do we make that massive cultural shift, because it could save us.
Okay, first of all, do we have a win-lose situation? Do people agree with the question?
I think freely functioning markets are the best hope for the still losers in the world, and I am loath to advocate an abandoning of that paradigm. I don't consider capitalism a win-lose. I think it's a...
But as General
everyone
Clark
can potentially win if they play by the rules of the game.
But as General Clark said, there are people in countries who stand to lose, the authoritarian rulers, the dictators, their cronies, etc. And you look at a country like Zimbabwe, which used to be the breadbasket of Africa, and indeed, fits in right with your theory about we now have enough money, the power to feed people, except now, because of Mobutu, who has been destroying the country, they're a net importer of food. So the problem is not scientific, the problem is, again, within countries, people or governments, small groups adopt policies that keep people from reaching their full potential.
General?
I think you've asked a really visionary question. And so in the latter half of the 21st century, assuming we solve the global warming problem, and that the center of world production is the subcontinent and China, and that all we have to do in the United States is grow a little soy and distribute the munificence of Chinese and Indian production here. What will people do with their lives, and how will they be motivated? Because we haven't yet found anything that better motivates people than the opportunities for self-actualization that come starting in a free market system and then at a certain level giving back to others. We just haven't found any other system to motivate human behavior. Communism was a failure. You don't reform the nature of mankind. And I think that for all the scientific promise and of the early 1960s, we really haven't found a way to change human nature. So if you could dial up and get the automobile of your dreams, a home, an education for your children, and all the clothing you'd like to wear, and all the jewelry that anyone else would want, all the entertainment you'd ever like to see, what would you do with your life? And that's a huge cultural step for us. Maybe someday mankind will have to face that step.
I certainly don't think it's something that governments are going to plan individually or collectively. No. But I tell you, there are some wonderful science fiction novels that have been written about the world in which nanotechnology makes everything plentiful, and the societies they imagine are quite different from ours today. I don't make that as a
we were just hoping
mocking comment. I think it's very real.
We were just hoping that your answer wasn't golf. George?
Yeah, I was just going to say that in 1900, real wages were higher in Argentina than they were in Great Britain. And at the end of World War II, people thought that Ghana was going to develop more rapidly than Korea, and Korea's had an explosion of per capita income. So from a development economics standpoint, we think we have a reasonably good idea as of what it is that leads to wealth creation, whether it's property rights, stable macroeconomic policies, law enforcement, whatever it might be. The problem, of course, is one of implementation. So I think this understanding that the policy choices that countries make is very, very important to dealing with the issue that you raised.
Other questions? Before we take that question.